Hello everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent, and in this episode we pretty much just talk about all the news from the Descent, the D&D live event for 2019, and there is a lot to discuss, so let's jump right in. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I'm joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Say hello, sir.
Welcome, everybody, to a bright and early Saturday morning. The sun is shining, and we are ready for a lot of news this morning.
Lots of news, because the Descent is happening. We have descended into news of all the new products that are coming out for Dungeons & Dragons in the next year. And there is a plethora of them. And but I'm going to ask you this. Was there anything unexpected? Were you like, oh, I was not expecting that, Mr. Lucian? Because a lot of it, I was just kind of like, oh, okay. You've kind of been leading up to that. All right. Yeah, you've also been leading up to that. So
yeah. Definitely the other products that they were mentioning. I didn't see multiple more box sets coming out that we're going to talk about. I didn't see more comic book announcements, but I think we called the adventure itself a little bit, or at least parts of it. We kept mentioning maybe we're going to here, maybe we might be able to do this thing, and that seems to be what we're getting. The one thing that surprised me was the production quality of the streams themselves was really good. They were doing crane cameras. They were doing different 3 or 4 different camera angles. They had pretty good audio for most of it, so it was really good.
Yeah, no, the audio was great. It is funny though, because I was watching on YouTube, and I'm assuming it was the same stream that went everywhere, but the people in YouTube were commenting that they're like, are the cameramen fighting? Because like one camera would be like, and then like shaking, and then it would cut to the other one really quick. And I'm like, it's like they're vying for power. So I don't know what was going on there, but the quality was great. I mean, they're in LA, they're hiring like local LA people to do this event who know how to do these kind of events. They know how to like microphone people and things like that. So it's a little not what am I going to say? I was going to say better, but like not better than the one in Seattle, I guess. But they're working with professionals. So it kind of makes sense. Oh, I can't hear you. Is that me or you?
There you go. It's the difference between, like one camera that sits and then that's just about it versus they were actually trying to do production-based stuff, which I think is really cool. And I don't think it was perfect, but it's definitely better than any other live role-playing Dungeons & Dragons game I've seen, even with like the little mistakes or the little weirdness that come in here or there. It was really cool to see all that stuff happening. So
no, it was super fun. So we're going to go kind of down the line of our list of notes. And we're going to try and hit everything and then just talk about it for a little bit. And then if we have time, we'll talk about our home games. But we have a lot of stuff to get to. But first, you put this on our show notes, Beholder, The Art to Dungeons & Dragons. It's a movie, and this isn't something they announced. This is just something that's out in the world that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I just had noticed it's kind of like a documentary similar to the book that they had put out recently about the art of Dungeons and Dragons over, the last 40-ish years, basically. 44, because I was born in 74, so it was the year it came out. So I know exactly always what date D&D is. But so I thought it was interesting for those of you we've always loved the art. And the only thing, probably the biggest single item that anybody could ever say that brought them into this hobby was they saw some piece of art somewhere at some point on a book, and they bought a book and they got involved. And even if their friends showed them how to play, it was the art that captured you when you saw them opening the monster manual or their DM screen in front of you. And yes, the rules were fun and the game was fun, but the art captured you in and made you want to go out and find more about it and continue to do it. So I always think it's always cool to see those things. So it was like www.eyeofthebeholdermovie.com that was going to come out. And I just thought, it was interesting because I wasn't sure what kind of news we were going to get. So I was just like, it was funny that all these other things had popped up. Just like they released 2 days before the event's going to go, they released the new Artificer articles. So
yeah,
we even have that to talk about, the Unearthed Arcana Artificer articles. So there's a bunch of stuff. We may get to some of that or not, but I just thought it was interesting, especially because you bought the book, right? You bought the one that was the
Wayfinder's Guide.
No, the Art and Arcana
Oh,
of
yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah, yeah.
like that, the one that's just a flip through of,
Yep.
of
It's
years
actually,
past art.
I don't know if it's still super cheap, but I don't think it sold as well as they wanted or something, because I saw it for like 50 or 60% off on Amazon recently. And and the like deluxe edition. And I was like, oh, I wish I'd gotten the deluxe edition, but I didn't want to spend the like $100 to get it. But now it's like $50 to $60, which is completely reasonable. But no, it's Art and Arcana, and it's over there. I can't reach it, but it really cool book, just the visual history of D&D. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. They're giving me some pointers, and I have my overlay. I decided to throw in the one thing that you had talked about that you thought was kind of cool was the new Baldur's Gate dice box. So I put it on our overlay.
Oh.
So it's on there, but it's definitely on the top layer. So yeah, that's true. You know, this is the pro show. This is how we do things. We don't ever, do things wrong. It's probably got to go under this one. Right.
So yeah, something to check out. Eye of the Beholder movie. I put a link in to I'll put a link in the show notes and the description of the YouTube video, but also I just threw it in chat so you guys can check it out if you want to. But the big news is the new adventure storyline coming out September, Baldur's Gate: Descent into Avernus. So I have two questions for you. One, what is Baldur's Gate and what is Avernus, and why are we descending into it?
Yeah. Well, another big city in the Forgotten Realms area. In fact, the Sword Coast area. So we're still in the Sword Coast. We haven't left the Sword Coast at this, unless you count Chult, which really I still think Chult is kind of Sword Coast-ish. But Baldur's Gate, the way they I kept hearing people describe it as if Waterdeep is Metropolis. Yeah. Then Baldur's Gate is Gotham. But I think they wanted a gritty, darker city or town. And we talked about this in a couple of other podcasts, if you go back and watch a couple of those, where we said that Baldur's Gate is that grittier one. There's blood in the streets. It's a lot more dangerous of a town. And things are a little bit darker going on here. This is a very sinister place ran by sinister people. And more sinister people are vying for control of it. And that's the type of storylines you're going to get out of this type of town. And then now Avernus, which we know is lovingly referred to as the front porch of hell, or the doorstep of hell, or the first layer of hell, where this huge battleground is going on. We're going to get a storyline that has us get involved in that, which I think is very interesting. And they said, well, we don't want to spoil the storyline, but I feel like there's not much more to it, right? There's some adventure in Baldur's Gate. We get roped up into doing something that sends us to Avernus. We do something in Avernus. I feel like we kind of know what's going on, but I still want to play it, and I'm still interested in it. And there's still so many things that we can do. Now, how many of your lore videos that are out on your channel right now have touched on Baldur's Gate information or Avernus information? Have you talked too much about that on your lore?
Yeah, there's two. So I did a Baldur's Gate video. So if you want to watch Baldur's Gate, there's a Baldur's Gate video. And I also did a 9 Hells video that touched on all of those. But because of this was so exciting, and I realized I have never done anything on Zariel, and like listening to them talk about Zariel, who's the archdevil for the first layer of hell, Avernus, I wanted to do a video on that. So I actually started writing a video last night. I put everything else away that I was supposed to be working on, and I started writing that video. So I think I'm going to edit that today and either release it today or tomorrow. So stay tuned to the Jordan YouTube channel, because there will be a new video kind of detailing that at some point. But no, if you watch my 9 Hells video, I incorrectly state that Bel is the archdevil of hell of Avernus, because he was, until Zariel came in and Asmodeus said, no, Zariel's going to be the archdevil, and pretty much usurped Bel as archdevil, and Bel is now like a lieutenant of Zariel, because of the weird devil hierarchy that they have going on, where I'm higher up on the chain than you, so I then lord over you and control you and things like that, with Asmodeus at the top. So, or Asmodeus, as I get people, I think you can say it either way, but if I say it one way, the other half is going to berate me for saying it incorrectly. So, But Descended to Avernus, and I think I disagree with you. I don't know the story at all. Like we know we're going to hell, but I don't know why I'm going to hell. Like, why would anyone want to go to hell? There has to be something going on. And what's the secret around Zariel that, like, they even mentioned that she might be able to be redeemed because she was once an angel. And so there's a lot of like mystery around that. I am super stoked for this. Like I'm really excited for this adventure, and I'm gonna hopefully try and play it. Where my group is running Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and I don't know how long that will last, but I might just be like, when September hits, guys, we're gonna play this. They've been describing it as Mad Max Fury Road meets hell, I guess. And so there are apparently some like hell war machines that you can like pilot and drive around.
Yes, the infernal machines.
The infernal machines, thank you. And so people are freaking out about that because Ghosts of Saltmarsh will have some basic like ship to ship kind of combat options, and I guess they expanded those to be whatever. So I can finally, I've been trying to do this with Mutant Crawl Classics for so long and run my Fury Road 0 level funnel, and I was like, now I can probably run this in D&D using the adventure, using this adventure. So that's something that really, I don't know, made me salivate. I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, this is exactly what I want for like ever and ever.
And in the streams, they showcase like one of the characters, the main characters, is riding in a big infernal war machine, and then all of their minions are riding on motorcycle versions of war machines, and they're racing around and doing stuff. So it's like already in the stream, they're starting to showcase some of those points. And so it's going to be very interesting to see those combat rules come in. And we kind of thought about that when we talked about that Unearthed Arcana article that come out, and it talked about vehicle-based combats. We could see the writing in the sky, right? We could see, okay, this is about ships, but they put wording in that eventually you could say, well, this could be about stagecoaches. This could be about cars. This could be about tanks. This could be about flying fortress, airships, airships and all kinds of stuff. So we're starting to see that kind of lead out. And it is interesting that the things they work on really do end up being in the book. So like,
or the things they play test.
Yeah. So like the Mordenkainen stuff helps build the foundation for this book, because you need a really good understanding of the devils and the demons if you're going to put out a nice adventure that's going to take you to where the big conflict is, the Blood War. We're going to the Blood War. I mean, Avernus is the Blood War, which is super cool. And we're going to get to see that. So I think it's cool. And they were talking about, Jim Zub was talking about when they got brought in to start riffing off this really crazy storyline that they came up with. This was in 2017. So 2 years ago, they were already gathering the storylines or gathering the skeletal components of making this book 2 years then. So I wonder what's now. Like, what do they sit down in 2019 in May, brought in some authors and some writers from other places to bring in a skeletal book that they're going to release 2 years from now? I mean, that's how big their pipeline of stuff that they've got. So it's just crazy and exciting to see how much product's coming out. So it's Avernus, and you can do like this desert wasteland battle scene. Hell is completely different. The first time we're off of the mortal planes, as far as in 5e, we're into another plane at this point. This is the first real jump, the first real adventure that takes us that way. They just, so many things they just kind of hinted at that I was really excited about. I can't wait for that we're talking about.
And according to Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, Avernus used to have cities and outposts and trade points, and it was like a kind of a more civilized place until Zariel and the Blood War happened. And now it's just a wasteland. But when I was reading that, I was thinking, oh my gosh, they've set this up perfect for, there's going to be dungeons for you to explore. There's going to be weird artifacts that you find in an ancient like city that's in Avernus somewhere. And so they really have, like you said, they've stacked the deck to make this work in the favor of players and storytellers and things like that. So,
and it gives us a post-apocalyptic setting that we can play around with, which we could then extrapolate if we wanted to do something Dark Sun wise, or we wanted to do some things, because they were talking about there's going to be a lot of environmental effects of being here. This isn't just a place you want to stay. This isn't a place that's fun and games for everybody. This is a bad place where bad things are, and you need to feel the gravity of that. And it sounds like there are mechanics to support the gravity of what's going on and what's around you. So I think that's cool. Just the idea of the environment you're fighting also, besides the other stuff that's there that you're gonna be fighting.
And we've seen that a little bit with like madness mechanics with Out of the Abyss, and I think Tomb of Annihilation had some mechanics like that where you have to have supplies and you need to watch your water. So like the environment hurting you in some aspect, but this will be another fresh new mechanic kind of relative to hell itself. And like, why don't people travel to other planes very often? Well, it's because these environments have these nasty effects against you, you know, or like they always say, like, why don't the angels just come down and crush hell? Well, there's effects in Celestia where the angels are at, and there's effects in the nine hells that they are weaker because of that. So there's a reason that everyone kind of stays in their circle of the Great Wheel. So they kind of stay in their corner of the Great Wheel. So
yeah, and sticking with that was the one thing I was thinking about this morning when I woke up, and I'm absorbing everything. I jumped in the shower and I'm thinking about Avernus and the storylines, and the devil storyline the most, because that's what I'm fascinated with, this group of lawful evil that makes deals with people to do things. And then it struck me, it dawned on me, Avernus is the only place devils can die for good, right? That is the only place where they die. So in reality, to me, those types of characters, the only place that a devil can have fear is when they're on that plane, right? So when they come to the mortal lands, they feel powerful. They're not afraid of anything. They can try to make some deals. They can try some schemes. If it doesn't work out, not a big deal. They'll find their way back. But when it's on Avernus, it's for keeps, right? They cannot risk it. So they probably are very fearful creatures when they're there, and they don't want to be there. But here's the thing, they can't just give up on it, because if they die anywhere else, they go back to Avernus when they pop up. And if they don't control Avernus, or at least a place in it, when they pop up, whatever does control, it's going to kill them and they're gone. So they have to fight for it. So think of that struggle of somebody who has the most fear you could ever have in your life. Like all of us have had that moment, whether it was you were swimming in an ocean, or you were in a car accident, or you were riding a bike and you fell down a cliff, or you're atop of a tree in the wind. I mean, that real gut-wrenching fear that we've all had throughout our lives. When you're a devil on Avernus, every second probably is that moment for you, because anything could come by and just wipe you out.
Yeah.
And that's going to affect your decisions. That's going to affect what you're going to try to do. That's going to affect how you interact with the players. In fact, it makes more sense that they're going to try to get people to fight for them, because they don't want to fight at all costs, right? So just that thought just opened up the floodgate for me as far as what kind of cool adventures. So why would adventurers ever want to go to hell? Because a devil comes and makes a deal, gives them power, but says, you have to come fight this battle for me. And I'm willing to give you the power. I'm not lying to you. I'm not doing anything. I need you to fight this battle for me, and I'm going to give you big power. But now you're dealing with lawful evil to get that power that you want. And do you do it, kind of thing. So there is that kind of that push and pull of what you can do with a player character. Maybe one of their party members died, and he's willing to resurrect him. That's kind of the way I roped in one of our players in our campaigns to sell his soul to the devil, or at least a possible. If he doesn't complete a task, the devil gets his soul. If he completes the task, the devil's like, hey, great, that's the task I wanted. I want you to destroy this gate that won't let the demons into this world. Do that. Here's the soul. But if not, I get your soul and I get that other soul too. So it's like, that's a tough thing to just try to turn away and say, no, I'll never make a deal with the devil. Sometimes they might be persuasive enough. So I just love that the context of what we could do with that in storytelling.
Yeah, and they also say that this is going to be levels 1 to 13. It's about 256 pages long, so that's really cool. And then I feel like they say this every single time, but they say like this will be easy for new DMs. And I mean, Wizards of the Coast is never going to come out with an adventure and be like, this is an expert adventure that you should not buy if you are a new DM. Only like hardcore people should buy, because they want to sell books. But I'm curious why do they say that? Like, why do they say this will be easy for new DMs? I want to read this and just be like, well, what makes this easier than Curse of Strahd, or what makes this easier than of other books that you've written? But we'll see. So
yeah, I think I thought the same thing, where they made this statement, but I want to see if I read it, if it's different, because I don't know if they ever made that claim with Storm King's Thunder, because I would think, to me, if a new DM came to me and said the very first thing I'm going to run, which was what Lucian did, was Storm King's Thunder, that might not be the very first thing you run. That one was a little bit tougher, I think, to get a handle around. But no,
and I'm reading Curse of Strahd right now for a video, and I was just like, although this is great and it is chock full of information, it is difficult to keep all of these different plot lines and threads kind of woven together to make a really cool story. And I almost feel like you need to read that book cover to cover 3 times before you run it. Just so you totally understand all of the different facets of it. And maybe Storm King's Thunder is the same way. I've only read it once, and I've never ran it, but like, yeah, like what makes, I don't know. I'm really curious about that because they said specifically like, this is written to be for new DMs. So,
and I think it's something that they're trying to iterate on. They're trying to make each book they put out easier than the way they did it in the past. So I think they're learning their lessons of 5 to 6 years to say, this is how we were doing things, but this is what's going to make it easier for people now. Because they said it about the box set, the new Essentials box set, which we haven't got to yet, but they talked about that's easy for a new DM type thing. This one's supposed to be written in such a way that it's easy. And they said, well, how if you're sending your characters to hell, can that be easy for a dungeon master? But it was the idea that you're freed to really kind of do it the way you want to. And there was a really cool statement that they were talking about, that the time your adventure in hell isn't the same time that's happening in the rest of the world. So you can play around with, you left for a second, and then when you came back, you were actually in hell for a year or 2 or whatever, but it was only a second of mortal time when you come back, or vice versa. You were there for a week, but now it's a year later, and you can play around with some of those time mechanics to help fit this adventure into your other adventures or your other things that you wanted to do. So I think that was one thing that they were talking about. But it has to come down to the wording and how they've structured it and how they help lead the Dungeon Master. I think a lot of people said Dragon Heist, Waterdeep Dragon Heist was could be one that a new Dungeon Master could run. Though there were 4 things to choose from, if you just chose one of them and you focused in that area, you didn't have a lot. It was a concise and smaller campaign. It wasn't a worldwide scoping campaign. So that would, in a way, was easier for maybe a new Dungeon Master. But, I think they're just trying to always make their books easier. And they probably will never say, no, this is a hard book, you shouldn't buy it.
Yeah, that was my point, I guess. I'm like, so you say that this is easier, but like, are you then retroactively saying don't buy Storm King's Thunder because it's like really complicated? But yeah. And so I think like, I mean, we could talk about this all day, but there's a bunch of other stuff to talk about as well. But both of us are super excited for Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. It should be a really fun adventure. And I feel like, I don't know, every single time I feel like they just step it up with like another great adventure. Not necessarily some of these other ones like Tales of the Yawning Portal and Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which are like rehashed older adventures, but when their big storylines always seem to top the other one. But maybe that's just me getting really excited. But in other news, the Artificer got an update. I know because I have a player who is going to be playing an Artificer in our Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign. He's really excited. I have a co-host who plays a Artificer in an online game. And so now you have some new stuff to choose from. Are you going to change any subclasses? Because we got the Archivist
and Battlesmith.
The Battlesmith, yeah.
I don't think I'm going to change. Artillerist is still the one that I was interested in, but I love the direction and creativity of this class. I feel like it's this, we know how we used to do it in the past, this kind of thing. This is how we did it 5 years ago. This is how we put the player's handbook out. This is how we described how these classes did things. The way they're creating this article and the way they're getting ready to put this in whatever book it comes out in, because it's not in Avernus, I don't think. So we're still waiting to see what book this would come out in at some point. I love the creativity they're putting in the writing about how you manifest the thing that you are, or how your powers manifest, how your abilities manifest, how your spells manifest. And they really go in to help give you cool ideas on how this might happen. Talking books, floating skulls with information in them, the turrets with crab legs on them. There's just a million things. Like my turrets are toys that I built, wooden carved toys that are almost like marionettes that move on their own. There's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do with it. And it feels very creative style class. And it's drawing me to it because it's letting me be creative. Like, it's almost like if you'd written the Ranger class, right? I love the Ranger. I'm playing a Ranger at the moment too. And you wrote it in such a way that you said, also remember that when you're playing the Ranger, sometimes you draw your bow back and you get the fire as the string and it launches out a fire arrow. And that's how your attack works. Or sometimes you do this, like they give you these creative ideas on how your powers manifest. Besides, I have an actual wooden bow, I have a string, and I have a regular arrow, and that's what a Ranger is, or my
And that's
idea of it is,
Eberron, honestly. Like Eberron is
yeah.
all about that. Like they were like, how can we take the mechanics of this and just reimagine them in a different way, and so instead of casting cure wounds, you pull out syringes that's got some kind of like concoction that you pump into somebody and they're healed. And that was a lot of like of the turning magic on its head, I guess, or classes or certain things like that. So I don't know. I agree with you. I think it's really creative and really awesome. Very pet heavy. Like I didn't think the artificer, would have would be a pet class. I was not expecting that. I like it. I think it's really cool. But I noticed people on the internet, especially on Reddit, were just like, "Oh, that poor Beastmaster." Like you're literally making a really great pet class, and then you still haven't fixed the Beastmaster that much. The Beastmaster Ranger. And so it's just kind of this I don't know, like thoughts on that, I guess. Like what do you think about, because you're playing both now?
I'm playing Beastmaster now because I wanted that. We talked about this before, that experience of, we always hear the internet talk about what they like or don't like or what's broken or not broken, and sometimes we comment on the conversation, but maybe we haven't actually played that class in a campaign, and so we don't know. We're just kind of thinking about it from a paper standpoint or a number crunching standpoint, but not an actual, I played it. And I'm having fun with the Beastmaster. I don't think I'm underpowered compared to anybody. I don't think my damage isn't doing very well. I think my pet is pretty cool at the moment. I don't know. It feels pretty good. And my turrets are cool only because I described them cool. Their mechanics aren't that much different than many of the other things that are in the game. But it's what everybody's loving in the game that I'm playing and using them is the way I describe them. I have 3 of them that I set down, and one is the turtle, which is the defensive one that lets out butterflies when it does the healing aspect of it. And then one is like a little wooden manicore that he's carved out of wood, and it's about the size of a dog. And its tail will click back, and then it will throw the bolt, which that becomes the ballista one. And then I have one that's a dragon that I've created, and that one does the flame turret if I ever throw that one out. And so it's just carved wooden toys. And everybody loves the way that, describing how these things work, but the mechanics are still there. They're still just, a 2d6 damage or, whatever it might be in some of these. So, but what's great is the way they wrote the class encourages you already to be thinking of those things. And I think had they written the other classes in that same way, then we would be just as excited. Because you could say, well, a ranger isn't just somebody who shoots a bow and has an animal that runs next to them, like you would see in World of Warcraft, trailer when you had the dwarf. Like when we first saw a World of Warcraft commercial come out, the first thing anybody saw was the dwarf on the snowy hill. He puts his flintlock rifle in the ground, and that big bear comes up, and it's all looks really good, and you're just like, that's a ranger. That's like a pet class. That's what I want to do. But there's other types of rangers, of people that sneak through the Underdark, people that are guides and scouts that aren't necessarily pet classes. And I think had they come up with some cool ways to say there are other ways, an urban ranger, what would an urban ranger be? Because there must be some of those, right, in these big cities. So if we started imagining what those were, these were like people that were parkour, tagging, spraying symbols on walls. Maybe that's the style of an urban ranger. And you can do an Underdark ranger. Well, what's an Underdark ranger? Well, maybe that's a ranger that has not just the dark vision part of it, but like interacts with that type of animals, or does something different that is all cave based and things. So I think if they put those in the classes, we would have had much more broader idea of what a ranger was, and it wouldn't be boring to some people. Or what a paladin is just this thing, the holy warrior. It can be really more.
Yeah. I think specifically, and I was looking it up just so I'm sure, like the Battlesmith has this Iron Defender, and like you can cast Mending to heal it. I think it gets its own initiative, and it can use its reaction. It's basically like just a better version of the Ranger Beastmaster pet. But then you have to say that a lot of people are like, well, this is like, if you're comparing apples to apples, it's like, well, this one is clearly better than the other. But you have to understand that the Ranger also has his full list of spellcasting and his full abilities as well. And maybe this particular Artificer is lesser than a Ranger. Like if you took away their pets, all of a sudden is the Beastmaster Ranger up here and the Artificer right here. But if you give them their pets, all of a sudden they're equal. And so that's something that I was thinking about as well. But no, it's yeah, I don't know. I like where you're going with that, where like, what does this look like? And that's the fun of D&D, is taking, like, let's take the Ranger. What is an Underdark? What does it mean to be an Underdark Ranger? And kind of playing with those things. Like maybe your Hunter's Mark looks completely different from like an Urban Ranger or something like that, because we like to flavor our spells that way. And as long as you keep the mechanics the same, it's balanced, but you can flavor it. It reminds me of a one-shot I played on Mistress of Modules, where I was a Fey Warlock that had Pact of the Chain, and I had a little sprite that sat on my shoulder and followed me around. I flavored it that I cast nearly all of my spells that weren't Eldritch Blast from my sprite or my pixie. So like I cast Sleep, and he would like launch off my shoulder and do fairy dust on everybody and put him to sleep. And it's just like, that's just a fun mechanic, that it's like, well, if this guy is following me because of my patron, it would make sense that he's the one that actually casts the spells, and I kind of just like sit back and direct him to do what I need to do. So I like that idea. And it's just, that's fun to reflavor everything.
Yeah. And I think that's what I'm really enjoying, is the idea that they are asking us to use our imaginations to not change the mechanics. They don't want us to figure out new what weapon should do 1d8 plus or this. They're just saying, okay, you deliver damage in this way, or you deliver a spell in this way, or you deliver this special ability in this way. Let's think of creative ways on how that gets delivered. And we describe those things to the people around us. And that's what's really infused in this article that makes me really excited for any of the new classes that are coming out, because I feel like they're leaning on the creative side of it. They're not just describing the mechanics of it, right? They're leaning into, there's many ways you can describe the same mechanics, like that desert mage you created that was like a UNT desert mage, or you could do, and that's all themed that way. Right now I'm playing a war mage that's all elemental war mage, so in my mind he's a very elementalist kind of war mage. It's just all lightnings and fires and ice spells and things like that. So it's just really cool ways to describe those things.
Yeah. Man, so many things to talk about. So the Dungeons and Dragons versus Rick and Morty. So the Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons comic books have been pretty popular. And I was talking with some friends, and we kind of saw this coming, where like, they're probably going to do a starter set for Rick or Morty or something like that, because it just makes sense for them to keep tying it in. And basically, the comic books are called Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons. And this is going to be an adventure called Dungeons and Dragons versus Rick and Morty. It's a box set, and it has rules modified by Rick. Comes with a DM screen and dice, and we didn't really hear much more than that. Like, they didn't offer a ton of information about it, other than like, this is coming and it's going to be hilarious and awesome, and it's going to be kind of gonzo because it has the rules modified by Rick. So I'm imagining like wizards are ultimately super powerful and bards are not, because if you read the comics, Rick doesn't like bards. So yeah. But that should be really exciting. And I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty. And I've read the comic books, and I really like the comic books, that I think this is something I'm definitely going to pick up. Yeah.
And I think what's really cool about it is, it's a box set written in the way that Rick would be running stuff, just like we got the box set of Stranger Things. And I love this kind of themed idea. I feel like this is a fun way for them to expand in merchandising than some of the other ways they used to, say back in the 80s or 90s, when it was really weird, the things they would pick. It'd be like, here's your dinner plate and has a Dungeons and Dragons artwork on it or something. It was like really weird merchandising things that they would do. Sometimes it was cool, but like toy lines and that stuff, sort of. But I like this idea of box sets that lead into other things that we think is funny. And it's written by Pat Rothfuss, has a big hand in helping Jim Zub write this. And it seemed like it was something that they are playing on that funny kind of trope of metagamey stuff happening, and it's Dungeons and Dragons. They went on that adventure and they came back to this world, but some of the Dungeons and Dragons followed them back into the world. And that's kind of what it feels like. It is the kind of the storyline of what's going on there. The artwork would probably be amazing and fun. The humor is going to be on point and great. They're always doing callbacks to the old adventure stuff too, because they're always making fun of different things that those of us that have been in the hobby for a long time are really going to have really cool Easter eggs to pick out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be really fun to have. I think it's cool that they're doing more of those. And they said that they were just completely surprised by how popular the original one was. They had to obviously do another one. And I thought that was
and so that's the adventure, but like you were saying, they have to do another one. They are releasing Rick and Morty Chapter 2, The Painscape, which is going to be another comic book, like probably 4 or 5 issues of comics. Should be really, really fun. Continuing the story that is Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons. And the artwork for that looks really awesome. Like Morty is, or Rick is like covered in a robe of eyes, and he's this like evil looking wizard. It's just really, really awesome. So I don't know. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. And it's clear that they're big fans of Jim Zub, because he's pretty prominent in this year's stream stuff. He's prominent in the products they're putting out. So they definitely really like, they're a big fan of Jim Zub, and he's getting to do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons stuff right now.
So, and
including his other comic.
Yeah. And then something I didn't know too much about was the Young Adventures Guide. That's going to be out in July, I believe. I think I saw that. But tell us about that. What is this?
Well, and again, I've only just heard about it on the stream, and they talked about it a tiny bit. And I'm sure there's probably other information out there, because I feel like they've shown this somewhere else.
They have.
I don't think this
it's been
was
on
the
Amazon for a
debut.
while.
Yeah, I don't think it was the debut of it. So, but it felt like it was a guide to help young players learn Dungeons and Dragons, but not learn the rules so much, but learn the skills of understanding role-playing games. Like letting them understand the concept of, you're going to play a character and you're going to think about what that character would do to do something, or how they would try to do something, or how they would solve a problem, or how they would solve a puzzle, or how they might talk to basically the whole interaction between non-player characters and things that are going on. So it wasn't, I don't think it's a rule book on how combat works. They don't talk about, like you get a bonus action, you get an action. It's not that. It's about the skills of role playing and working together in a collaborative game. So,
and like
that's
having,
about as much as I know about it.
Yeah. And so like the idea I got was like, you're not picking up this book of extra feats for the crunchy people that want to be like, if I take this Shield Master feat, all of a sudden my Eldritch Knight is going to be like really awesome, and I can do this, and then I can augment like that, and like kind of changing it. Like a lot of people play that. How effective am I in battle, or how effective am I in social situations? And they build characters around that to basically augment their dice rolls to be the best that they could possibly be in whatever, or they want to do something specific. We forget that a lot of people need to just understand, especially kids, like it's a new concept to be like, well, it's not, I take that back. It's not a new concept. Kids are full of imagination, and they do this all the time. Yes. So it's a way of saying, instead of just, I imagine this has some very specific and simplified dice rules to really easily be like, you want to attack this goblin, we're going to take initiative, we're going to take damage, we're going to take all of that stuff out of it. But like, if you want to attack this goblin, you're going to roll this die and we see if you succeed or not. And like, make it very basic, simple stuff. But like she was in the stream, they were emphasizing like, how do you make a character? And then how do you decide what that character does? So a lot of teaching the basics of RPGs. And it's interesting now that we have an understanding of that before, because when D&D originally came out, like people were playing this war game that kind of shifted into this, and everybody played D&D differently. And now that we have things like streamers and everybody's broadcasting their games, I can be like, wow, Lucian plays games are really different from how Jordan plays games. Nobody's right or wrong, but like we'll say, Jordan's got this really crunchy game and Lucian's got this really story driven game. And it's kind of interesting how the two of them play, but they're still playing the same game. How do we take that and teach younger kids who aren't, necessarily watching or learning from streams, because maybe they shouldn't be with the amount of swearing that goes on in a lot of these streams, like, I lost my I got another natural one. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. And then there's a part of me that's like, well, Wizards of the Coast, you're totally like pushing drugs, and this is the get them while they're young kind of a thing.
Yeah, they're gonna be spending their $50 every couple of months.
Exactly. So, but I think that's really cool. I think RPGs are great for kids. I know a lot of teachers that utilize Dungeons and Dragons in the classroom as a way to not only for fun, but just to like, you learn how do you handle this emotional situation when you aren't actually connected to it. You know, like if your best friend betrayed you, or you lost your best friend in battle, and you have to grieve and you have to do all this other stuff, they kind of learn these life lessons in a safe place. And that's really cool. I think the magic of D&D storytelling is going to be awesome. So
yeah, the way I was looking at, because I know I saw some of the other commenters were talking about, well, kids already know how to play, they already know how to pretend, and I was thinking, well, that's true. They don't need a book, they don't need somebody to come along and teach them how to play or whatever. But the thing that's different, I think, is that they understand how to play, and they understand how to imagine and make up their own things. And then they understand that there's this thing called games, that are things like board games that you play Monopoly in life with your family, or there's card games and things. What they haven't been taught is that play and games are two things that can come together. And in Dungeons and Dragons, or any role-playing game that you decide to, to show a kid, is that it's play and a game at the same time. The two things are kind of separate up until you're a certain age and you realize, wait a minute, these two things are the same thing. And I think it's just helping them understand that, oh, wait a minute, I get to use my imagination. We get to create a crazy, wonderful story about saving somebody in need, or helping the local, farmers, or defeating an evil monster that stole stuff from the town. That's a really cool thing that they might play out in their backyard with their friends. But then there's the structure of a game. There's board and there's dice, or there's stuff that's going on that helps not let you know the outcome. Right? It's starting to introduce the idea you don't know what's going to happen, because in a kid's play, they already have the script all written out, right? They know what's going to happen. They just play it over and over and over, and they use their toys to do that. I mean, I remember being a kid in my backyard creating a mass landscape for Matchbox cars, or a cool battlefield for the G.I. Joe fights that we would have when we were just young kids playing with toys and our friends. And even tag could be turned into some type of role play where you play tag but the ground is lava, or you play tag and it's later at night so it's scarier in some way, and there's all these different renditions of what you can do. You're starting to add role play elements to your games, and I just think that this is a book that helps people do that, where they say you have play, you have the things that you can do, that you can make up and have imagination, you can play characters, and then you have this structured game that eventually you're going to get to, but here's the skills that you learned before that. So I think it'd be interesting. I definitely want to read it, because you never know, just by hearing it, everybody can make something sound better than it is. Everybody can say, this is what we meant to do, but maybe it didn't hit the mark. But I would love to read it just to see, okay, what are they doing that helps build these skills? What are the things that helps bridge the gap to say you're a 7, 8, or 9-year-old who hasn't learned Dungeons and Dragons or any role-playing game at this point, because you don't have to start with Dungeons and Dragons these days. You can go to any really cool role-play game that's out there. You should start with Kids on Bikes, or you should start with, Tales from the Loop, or you should start with Numenera, or whatever it is. Kids could be playing these at 7, 8, and 9 and having really fun, adventurous stories, and just having a great time creating stories. I just think it's cool, and it's a nice little bridge to get them there.
I wonder if it's going to be like here are basically, when you're a kid, have you ever played Calvin Ball, where it's like, like I shoot you with your laser. Well, I deflect that laser. Well, the laser deflects off of a mirror and comes back and does hit you. And everyone just argues about like, well, what? Yeah. And so I wonder if it's going to be more like, how do we collaborate, like together? How do we tell a story? How do you lift up your party members? And then using the dice in that instance as well, to be like, well, the dice say X, Y, and Z, but I don't know. I feel like we're getting off on not a weird tangent, but like, we need to read the books before we form like a strong opinion. And we're not even sure what's in these books, but it's D&D for young adventurers, and it should be really cool. I'm excited. I want to, like you said, I think I want to read it. Gosh. And then it's 10:45 almost, but finally we'll touch on the D&D Essentials kit. That should be out June 24th in Target, and then 2 months later it'll be out everywhere else. But this is another, or what we should call it is Starter Set Plus. So you've played the original Starter Set. This is like, if you want to continue, but you're not really ready to dive into a larger adventure, here's the next Starter Set that comes with another adventure in Phandalin. Character building kit, so you don't need to necessarily use pre-generated characters. You can kind of build characters up. It's an adventure called Dragon of Ice Spire Peak, And the coolest thing about this, I think, and props to Wizards of the Coast for doing that, or doing this, is that it can be played with one DM and one player. So those people that are interested in trying D&D, but they can't necessarily find a large group of people to play with, you can literally play it with one DM and one player. So even like your 13-year-old son who's really into this and he can't find a group of players, dads can sit down and be like, I will run this for you. You can understand how to do this. And then maybe it's like really cool and we get more players and things like that. But looks really cool. Another adventure for me to review, which I'm really excited for. So, but I like that. And they said something in the trailer, they said something in the live stream that the starter set is their most popular setting module, like a product, really. Like they sell more of that starter set than they have a lot of other things. So it kind of makes sense that they're going to do like starter set plus. But the new Essentials kit looks awesome. Like it's done. Basically, they opened it up. They unboxed everything. They get new dice. You get all this stuff. You get character cards and magic item cards. So comes with a deck of cards that you can use to basically remind your players, you have this quest, you have this magic item, you have this helper or what are they called? Hireling kind of thing, sidekicks to like run around with you. So. I don't know. This was something I also was kind of like, I was there to figure out what the new storyline was, but then they announced this extra stuff and I just get really, really excited about all the new things.
And they definitely made a point to say you could start with this and not have the starter set.
Yeah.
It's in the same area, but it's not necessarily connected, but it can easily be connected. It also can be something you go immediately to after you do Phandalin, or you could even put it before Phandalin, he said. So you really could put it either or, and they take you to a lot of cool places that are right in that area and run some really cool adventures. And it sounds like it's more like a group of one-off adventures than it is like a campaign line of things that you would do. And so it allows you to pick and choose what you want to do. It sounds like it's a more thought out starter set than they did 5 years ago. And I feel like they want this to be the starter set without invalidating the original starter set. So they don't want to say, this is it, so don't buy the Phandalin starter set anymore, because I'm sure there's still hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those sitting on shelves. Like every time I go into my game store, I always see one of those Phandalin box sets still sitting there. And I'm sure they go through them all the time. It's not like sitting there with dust. It's like they got their couple new copies in. Somebody must have came in and bought the other copies not too long ago. So they definitely still are moving those copies. And I don't think they want to invalidate that, but I think they wanted to take a second crack at making this a tighter, better presentation of, if you have not done anything in Dungeons and Dragons, you go and you grab this box set, you've got everything you need, especially with the way they're talking about the 60-page character creation building guide, which was condensed down. They only do the 4 main classes, but they added Bard this time, and everybody kind of laughed about that or cheered about that. And so they get rid of, there's only like 4 races, I think, at that point in the Phandalin game that they talk about in the book. Obviously, you can use Player's Handbook and all that stuff to bring in the other stuff. But if you just play with the box set, it's slimmed down to get you going. But I like the addition of the cards. I like the addition of, if you get the magic item, here's the magic item, I just hand it to you. I like the idea that you can show the artwork. I love the idea that there's the big poster map on both sides to show you the area where you're at. The DM screen is non-specific to Phandalin, so you can use it anywhere else, even when you go on to buying all your other modules.
Well, make your own adventure afterwards. Take those level 6 people and the events that happened in Phandalin and like make your own adventure, which is kind of what I think a lot of Dungeon Masters do.
As an exclusive, I haven't told Jordan this yet, but I think we should try Dragon of Icespire Peak as the 2-player game version and really see how it works. So, like, I don't know if we'll roll a dice and one of us gets to be
DM
who player, but I think we should do it and put it on the channel.
I also think we have enough friends that would be super jealous that they couldn't play with us, that maybe we should invite some others, but that could be really fun and like put it on the channel. I think it'd
be cool to see the experience of a 2-player game.
That's true.
To really understand that the experience that, God, we would get 50 people to want to play the game. So one day when they put out a box set that says you can play with 1 to 50 players, that'll be perfect for that.
No, that could be really fun. We should try something like that out and see what can happen. I'd totally be willing to run something like that, and then we can put it up on the Saturday morning channel.
People different ways to play. You know what I mean?
No,
So.
for sure. I wonder how well it says 1 to 6, so it's probably like a couple of months of campaigns, maybe 8 sessions or something like that. So yeah, it's totally doable. That would be really cool.
Now the exclusive thing to Target is interesting. So that's a partnership with Target to start on the 24th. I feel like the
I didn't
next
even know
date
Target
after that
sold
was
D&D
like,
stuff.
right, like a
Like I
week
was just
later.
like, what?
Yeah, I think that's exclusive for a week, maybe.
No, 2 months.
Is it 2 months?
Yeah.
I missed that whole date. I must have missed
No,
that second
because
part.
they
That's
said
crazy.
June, July, August. Like I think it comes out in September
I
for
guess
like
Lucian's
regular
going to
stores.
Target.
Yeah, it's going to be a Target exclusive for 2 months, I think they said. So, and I don't know, that was crazy to me. Like, yeah, because usually it's like a week for stores or something, but I don't know. And it's also kind of sad that they aren't doing that for the local game store. Like really like 2 months in a local game store, that's huge for sales for that store before it's on Amazon and other places like that. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But I'm probably, going to have to go pick that up because, and the dice they give you like 2d20s and 4d6. Like they give you the extra dice you need to kind of play, to roll characters and have advantage and disadvantage. And so they've learned a lot about like, what do people need to play this game? And so there's beautiful new red dice to offset the blue dice you get in your original starter set. So
yeah, because I remember the original dice I got in the red box was the crappy plastic dice that you had to use a crayon to color in the numbers so that you could actually see them. It was so bad, but we loved it and we bought it and we needed it to play because once you played once, it was like you couldn't stop playing. It was so good. So,
oh man,
I think it's great. So lots of box sets. It's amazing. That's like 3 box sets this year.
Yeah.
You know, Stranger Things box set. You could start there. You could start with this new Essentials box set. You could get the Rick and Morty box set that we're going to get to. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff coming out that are these nice inclusive box sets that we're seeing. So it's interesting to see the different ways they're packaging the game and still giving us huge adventures, still giving us huge storyline stuff. The thing I didn't get anything that I could tell in just going back to Descent into Avernus is I didn't hear anything about new player mechanic stuff. So I didn't hear anything about new races. I didn't hear anything about new subclasses or classes. So I don't know if they'll slip anything in there or if we're not going to get any of that stuff. It's just a straight adventure.
You know, every adventure came out with new backgrounds. So I can only assume that this one will have new backgrounds. But those are so simple and you're kind of mechanically, you can design your own background. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, nothing new. The last time they did this on Stream of Many Eyes, we had our Saturday morning D&D show. And then afterwards they announced, was it Xanathar's or they announced something after? No, it wasn't Stream of Many Eyes. It was the one before that. But last year they announced Waterdeep and we had our show. And then after our show, they announced Dungeon of the Mad Mage. So maybe there's another book that
there's still a big announcement. There is still a Nathan said at the end of this. So I'm guessing on Sunday, they have one more big announcement to make. And he said it was he used the word big announcement.
Yeah.
So there's going to be one more thing.
So there's one more thing that we still have to talk about. Who knows? Maybe Lucian and I will do a Saturday morning D&D show Monday or something. And we'll because we want to like cover it or something like that. We'll see. But we've got 7 minutes left. Do you want to talk about your games or do you want to promote anything or what are you doing?
I mean, yeah, we don't have to dive into the games that I played. One of them, one got canceled. So this is very regular for games for us at this point. I'm enjoying playing Tomb of Annihilation. Had we had time, it was another perfect example of the party fought a CR10. Now we're 6th level characters. So to fight a CR10, usually a party of 6th level characters wouldn't be able to handle a CR10. We wiped the floor with a CR10. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got anything. We turn around and fight some CR4s, I think is what it was, but there were 3 of them, and we nearly get wiped. And it's so weird to see sometimes how that CR really lets you down. But we've kind of talked about that before. We can always save that again. That's going to come up again because it never seems to go away, that the CR rating just kind of doesn't help DMs out as much as it should.
They're more
and
like guidelines.
Yeah, it's probably an impossible thing to do, because we had the right party composition to fight the one thing, and we had a bad party composition to fight the other thing. It just
I will say it is not impossible to do, because if you ever play 4th edition, that was in super balanced. Like you knew it, you could build. They gave you like, here's 5,000 experience points, and you took those experience points and you divided it up between however many monsters you wanted to have, and as long as you did like equal. You use the guidelines to do the certain amount of monsters and the certain types of monsters. It was very balanced. And I think that was another reason that D&D 4th edition, they were telling everybody that they're like, this is the best version of D&D because it's so balanced, and it's so this, because combat was very fine-tuned and very specific. But with 5th edition, they went back to being like, I don't know, we kind of just wing it. I guess so.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. And I almost feel like we don't need a CR rating. And somebody mentioned it in chat there. We need an action economy rating. So we almost need an AE rating, which would help, I think, get closer to helping people. But I'm also starting to really lean away from this idea that as dungeon masters, we're supposed to create perfectly balanced adventure encounters for our adventurers. Because what is really the point of, if you go through a 1 through 20 adventure, and every time you create an encounter, it was always perfectly balanced for that party, are we really creating epic stories? Are we really creating the experience that we want? Maybe we're not. Maybe we're too focused. But that was like a whole nother, we could have spent a whole show talking about that. Other than that,
we will next show.
Yeah, and so I'm sure we'll swing back around to it. Other than that, promoting wise, we're still just doing Seeking Revenar games. We're doing the 2 games that I'm playing in. I'm hoping that me and Jordan get to play in some games soon with each other and some of the other systems, because I know, like, you were doing some testing on your kids with wands.
That's today, 2:00.
There you go.
I'm doing that. That's Kids with Wands, which is my Kids on Bikes Hogwarts hack. I will be playing that today, and I made an overlay and everything. I'm going to record it. We're not going to stream it, but mostly because I just can't stream right today. But I'm going to record it, and then I'll edit it and make it look nice, and we're going to put it up on the Saturday Morning D&D Show's channel. Cool. My caveat, though, is if it's good, because I'm super nervous about, like, I've never played this before. It might really be a not interesting, let's fine-tune the mechanics of the game as like an actual play test, as opposed to something that's interesting to put out there. But I have a feeling I have really good players. It's going to be a lot of fun, but we're going to do that today. So that's what so subscribe to the Saturday Morning D&D Show channel, because my Kids with Wands game will be there, and it should be a lot of fun. It will be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. So, and
don't forget, Secrets of Saltmarsh will be out in game stores and ready for us to be playing. We're like within a week of it now, so we're going to get to dive into that book. And maybe, I know me and Jordan were talking a little bit before the show, we might try to put up, we might try a review. And maybe put it up and see what you guys think of that, because we're trying to expand on the type of content that we're doing. We love doing the news show. We love talking about our games, but we're also trying to look for other things that you guys might be interested in us seeing or doing or talking about. So if you guys have advice for what other stuff you would love to see us talk about, then send that over. So if it's doing reviews of things, if it's talking about player, I don't know, like what are cool characters that people can make, all the different things that are D&D related that we would love to try out.
Thoughts were like doing reviews. So like Ghost of Saltmarsh is going to come out. I'm probably going to, I'll build a little system and do like a flip through of it, and just like things like that, do a casual flip through for the Saturday Morning D&D Show YouTube channel. And then also maybe character concepts. I know we have some other friends that do some shows where they take like an idea of like Iron Man, and how would you build Iron Man in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And so we might start doing some extra stuff, because we just kind of want to see this channel grow, and it's only going to grow if we do more cool stuff with it. So
and if there's things that we haven't thought about, let us know. Maybe there's something that you keep saying, hey, none of these shows are doing this. Well, send it our way. We want to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Leave some comments down below. You can always contact us on Twitter. Lucian is at Sir Lucian Gaming, which is right above his head, and I am at Jordan with a PH right below here. And I don't know about on Twitch. That was the YouTube overlay, but the Twitch overlay is probably different. But you can always reach out to us on Twitter. We love to hear from you guys. with that, I think we're done. That was a news heavy show. So not sorry. Like, I'm sure
Check out the
everybody was really interested.
Leave a review. We need reviews on podcasts as much as we can.
Yeah.
Keep
If
the
you listen
discussion going.
If you listen on Stitcher or iTunes, please leave a podcast review. We would love to read them. And you know what? I'll just say this. A lot of podcasts do this. If you do leave us a 5-star review, we will read it on the air. Because why not? And a lot of podcasts do that, and we will also do that because we are like other podcasts.
We love the support. We love our community. We really do.
Yeah, super love it. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for coming out on this Saturday morning and watching us yab about all the news. Go check out The Descent. It's going to be going on all weekend long on Twitch and YouTube /D&D, I believe. So check all that out. And until then, we will see you next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Goodbye, everybody.